Honestly, if the MC from this show, Rick, interacted with the MC from I Parry Everything, I think we would have a Ricochet moment of just common sense being parried to the point that not only would the characters in question, so in this case, Angelica, suffer brain damage from the lack of common sense, I think we might actually cause an apocalypse because everyone would collectively fry at the lack of common sense. This show has seriously turned out so much better than I think any of us predicted. Like, this is such a great watch. And the idea of letting Rick know his strength, so now rather than him being like, oh my god, this character did this crazy thing, now it's like, I have to really master my abilities, so I gotta pull my punches. And to be fair, if he wasn't pulling them slightly, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would suffer more than brain damage. But the idea that we knew this man had a week, right? He had it scheduled that he was going to, in the course of a week, do an entire freaking tournament. You can and it's worse, you can only do one fight a day per Coliseum arena. And they're saying it's like 30 kilometers to the next one. So like, the fact that this man ran, One Punch Man, and in 4 freaking days cleared it. His master did it in 2. To be honest, I'm going to assume plot armor is the only reason Angelica hasn't been fried into a vegetable state for life, because her brain should have suffered a catastrophic failure by the lack of common sense she is experiencing. I have full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full and up thought to any of these Ossan Newbie adventure episodes, it's going to be over there exclusively. So, this show just warms my heart, man. It has an old school art direction, honestly very Hulk-like. If anyone watched Hulk last year, I think it was. Fantastic art direction there. And honestly, it just has that old gritty vibe, and just the characters be popping out. But the surprising thing is I'm actually unsure of what Rick wants romantically. So, in most cases, Rick would be the character very oblivious to anything, like whether characters like him or not. Like, he would just be the musclehead, be like, girls who? But in fact, he's very much sexually attracted to Rena. And she, in this episode, admits to Angelica that, like, oh, there's no issue if he likes me or is attracted to me. He's an amazing guy. And I'm like, okay, that ship has sailed. But then, by the end of the episode, or closer to, when we learn that she has a fiance, he almost gets defensive, like, wait, like, what? Is this your type? And I'm like, wait a second. Does my boy Rick want to dip his toes into a few different ponds here? Like, what's going on? Either way, though, it's kind of nice having a musclehead who actually feels like he, you know, like maybe you want to say, oh, he's a little, you know, schoolboy crush with it, like gets super embarrassed, but honestly, it's kind of refreshing to have a character like Rick actually, you know, be flustered a little bit and actually show some interest in someone. Hell, if he wanted to go after the goddamn lizard boy who's apparently trying to marry Angelica, I'd be fine with that too. I just appreciate having a character admit that, you know, for such a musclehead-like design, I appreciate that he's not, you know, because I don't need every character to be like a Nor from I Parry Everything, right? Like, they can serve their purpose, but Rick is definitely the most refreshing of the kind of musclehead MCs as of late. But the Angelica stuff's interesting because I still think back to the initial time when we fought her and, you know, she was doing her crazy tripping maneuvers and Rick was like, yep, once again, like, that's just a, yep, you're very talented. The fact that we turned such a, what was supposed to be bitchy character archetype into an amazing supporting cast member is something I'm honestly shocked they were able to do. The thing about it is that they're actually developing her story in an interesting way. They added in the whole, like, kind of like, okay, you know, your family just crashed and burned financially, grandfather came in, married you off to cover up, you know, the lack of money. And it's interesting because the person she's supposed to marry doesn't seem that bad. He's apparently doing some rigging and, you know, some underhanded things. So it almost feels to me like they're either going to go the route that he turns out to be an absolute psychopath, like real dirtbag. It looks like his brother's the biggest dirtbag, but, you know, it's going to be he's actually the evil one. Or they're going to go something more in the middle where he's actually, you know, decent enough that if there's a way to remove it, he might actually honor. I don't know right now, but it's interesting because she's very clearly frustrated by all this and wants to defeat the brother who was doing some questionable... I don't think I've ever seen this before, to be honest. He has, like, a woman by the neck, chokehold, and then this other character has him, but it's a three-way chokehold, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what is with the strength in this series? And then in comes Rick just casually, like, without nothing stopping a punch mid-fly. But it's interesting, right? Because as it stands, she's saying she's not strong enough to defeat it. And in most cases, we would just have Rick body this guy and set her free, or get engaged. You know, just there's so many different ways you've probably seen it written, something similar. But he ends the episode with him saying, "I'll train you," which is funny because she quite literally realizes that you just said I'm gonna die. And if we consider the fact of what Rick's training went through, dying is actually quite literally what would happen. But it's interesting because that's not what I thought was happening. Initially, during that whole bar sequence, I'm thinking, oh, Rick's gonna come in and beat the living shit out of this guy. And then it's like, oh no, Angelica's gonna do it. Because Rick's saying, like, had she been in her proper headspace, she would have won that fight that she lost. So I'm thinking, okay, if that man in this bar just bodied the person who bodied us in the tournament, then it will be kind of like a redemption moment, and just evolves into a much more interesting sequence. I don't think anyone's assuming that Rick is gonna train Angelica to, like, free herself from basically a slavery pact. I mean, forced marriage, I mean, arranged marriage is just, it's a slavery pact if you ask me, man. Like, there's no willpower there, you're doing it for some family bullshit, right? Like, actually, marry the person you want to marry. But the thing about it is that I'm surprised she hasn't been married off yet, which is why I'm more open to the idea that this dude who's apparently rigging and doing some crazy shit may not be as bad as it's being led on, but I don't know, we haven't seen enough of him as it stands. But then again, you might want to make the argument, well, if he's covering for his brother and his brother's clearly a piece of shit, then therefore he is. But to that I say most families would, you know, still try to help family members even if they are bad. It doesn't make you bad, right? Like, I don't know, it's an interesting situation, and the whole episode was just not what I was expecting. Nor do I, if I look at my first few episode thoughts of the show, never would have thought the show evolved to this point. I mean, you get the fan-servicey moment. I mean, the fan-servicey moment was actually the thing that surprised me, because his immediate reaction was not on Angelica, so therefore his love interest is here. But then the way he talks about the engagement makes me, I'm like, Rick, are you monogamous or are you polyamorous? I have no damn idea what you want anymore, and I'm just so confused. But I appreciate having a musclehead actually have some sexual desires. And not in a creepy way either. There's plenty of those in this show. So it's nice to just have a normal dude who's just built different, but, you know, common sense just is nowhere to be found. Now, of course, those are my feelings. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Chitin Lord, Amanda Laboud, Bill, Tony Neal, Bassman280, Waka, Merc, and we also have Sebastian Just. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you all have a good one.